But what a lot of people are not aware of, on both sides of the Atlantic, is that America, and this is going to come as a shock probably to you and definitely to most of your listenership, is actually still controlled through the UK, right? You were given your independence grudgingly after the War of Independence in 1776. But 95 years later, what happened was that America actually went bankrupt, physically bankrupt. It was on its knees, so it came crawling back to Britain. And by the way, I'm not a British patriot, so I've got no axe to grind on this. I'm not making this stuff up. This is all documented, and it's easy to find as well if you've got the will to do it. And Britain agreed to bail America out on condition that it completely rewrote the Constitution and remained under the control, the indirect or direct even control of Great Britain. So people mistakenly think that we're the 51st state. Unfortunately not. It's more or less the other way around. America is still owned and controlled from the UK. And you've got to kind of clarify what we mean by the crown. It doesn't mean the royal family. No, the crown, it refers to the crown, what's called the British Crown Empire, which is the financial empire, the world financial empire, which is seated in the City of London. And by the City of London, I don't mean London itself. There's a specific area within London called the City, which is the financial district, and it's 1 square mile in the east of the city. And that is a separate state within a state, in much the same way that Washington, D.C. is in the States and the Vatican is in Italy. The Vatican is the seat of all religious power. The Washington, D.C. is the seat of all the world's military power. And the City of London is the seat of all the world's financial power. Something like, I can't remember the figure off the top of my head, but again, it's in the book. But there's something like 270 banks from all over the world, including the States, whose headquarters are in that 1 square mile. Okay. Everything is controlled through the financial crown empire, as it's called. Yeah. Well, what happened was, obviously Kennedy he was no angel, don't get me wrong, but he was definitely the last, president who was working on behalf of the people. I have no doubt about that. But of course, he gained a lot of enemies. He fell out badly with the CIA, the FBI, Israel, the big oil, big pharma, Britain, you name it. There's a whole, even the Catholic Church. He was a Catholic president, but he fell out with the Catholic Church as well. And all these factions, where are all these factions controlled? I know this is going to sound crazy to most people. From the Crown Empire in London. So this is the premise of that book. Oh no, I know what you mean. I think they are absolutely, totally under the control of whoever sits up here at the apex, without a doubt. These people use these so-called think tanks. And by the way, doesn't it sound nice and cozy and it's a think tank? It kind of creates the impression that these people are there to further humanity, when in actual fact they're just there to further the suppression of humanity and further the interests of the people who sit up here. So yeah, it is controlled from the top, absolutely. They're not independent in any way, shape, or form. So people don't be fooled by that particular idea. The formation of the Federal Reserve was basically the demise of America in many ways, because the Federal Reserve is not a federal institution, as I guess a lot of people already know that. But bear with me. I'm coming on to the main question that you asked me. But yeah, the Federal Reserve is not a federal institution at all. It is a privately owned institution with stockholders, and it controls the American monetary system. I could go on at massive length about the Federal Reserve itself, but let's talk a little bit about the connections to the Titanic and how the Federal Reserve came about. But we have to go back in history slightly, as we always do when we're talking about this stuff, because these things don't happen in isolation. It's always part of a chain of events. So yeah, just I'll just wrap it up now. But so what he did was they swapped their engines as a ship. They sank Olympic as Titanic, and Titanic, the original Titanic, which became Olympic, applied its trade across the Atlantic for the next 25 years till it was scrapped. Morgan's ass was saved. And also, who were the main three first-class passengers on Titanic? The very three men who led the fight against the Federal Reserve. And after that, the whole campaign against the Federal Reserve just collapsed, without a doubt. I mean, they infiltrate us, and they divide and conquer, and this is how they deal with it. This is how they deal, because this, at the end of the day, these people are scared. They're scared of us. They're more scared of us than we are of them, I think. Just my view. But if we got our collective acts together, we would be an unstoppable force. But we've got far more members than they do, if you want to put it in that kind of strange way. But if we could get our collective acts together instead of being in this disparate mess, which it is, the truth movement, isn't it? Let's be honest. If we were coordinated in any way, in the same way that they are, they're not perfect, but they are far more coordinated than we are, then they would be in trouble, and they know it. And this is why they have to resort to all these tactics like infiltration, divide and conquer.
Beyond the Forbidden.
So one thing I've noticed over the years, like let's say in Amazon's Prime, and I'm gonna lead to a point in this, like Amazon. Let's just say Amazon. I'm not talking about all these other apps, streaming apps, Netflix, whatever, but just Amazon Prime. Like around 4th of July, you're always going to have Independence Day in the top 10, always. Even if it's not free available to watch, people are going to purchase it. A 1996 or 7 movie. And then when Gene Hackman died, what did you? Well, actually, whenever he died, I told my wife, watch his movies, Hoosiers, and all his movies, are going to be some of his movies will be in the top 10.
Yeah,
and they were. And I'm talking about some of these movies are they have several lists, like top 10 purchased. People are purchasing these older movies. That's all good. I'm not hating about that. But and then also told my wife about Diane Keaton. I said, watch. Some of her movies are going to be, I didn't know which ones, but The First Wives Club, number 6, and number 4 was Something's Gotta Give. And these are being purchased movies. They're not just available to stream. And my wife's like, damn, how'd you know this? It's I don't know. Here's what I'm trying to get at, John.
Okay.
So this is the surface level, but even if I can kind of see the trends and habits of the population, of society, and I've been researching for a long time, not as long as you, but I see trends and things.
Yeah.
So I can predict things like that. With my wife, she's like, wow, how'd you know that? It's nothing. That's nothing. I told my wife, and what I'm telling you or the audience is like, if I can see something small like that, it's really small. Imagine the trends, the predictions, our movements in society, our buying habits, everything that the globalists, whatever name you want to call them, the alphabet agencies.
Yeah.
Imagine the habits, trends, everything else that they can see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe they use that against us. Maybe they saw this trend of this alternative movement years ago, right?
Yeah.
They saw it getting popular, so they needed a figure. Maybe a wolf wearing sheep clothing. I don't know. And then, we are awake. Maybe they hijacked the movie. I'm just saying that I didn't really mean to get on that, but they see these trends, habits, and they exploit them against us.
Absolutely they do. Are you referring to a certain Mr. Trump by any chance?
Possibly, yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what they do. They own the opposition. I think it was Vladimir Lenin that said many, many years ago, the best way to control the opposition is to own it, and that is exactly what they do. And I do believe. Sorry for all you Trump supporters and fans out there, but I really do believe that Trump is just a psyop. He's a living, breathing psyop. He's meant to lead us into this state where we believe that, oh, don't worry, guys, it's all being taken care of. Trump's coming to save us. And QAnon and all this, and it's just a tactic whereby it's to kind of put people off the scent, if you like, to make them think that they don't need to do anything anymore. Oh, it's okay now. It's all being sorted. We don't need to worry about it now. So we'll just go back to sleep again, and everything will be fine. That's the way it is.
Yep. And I'm trying to pull up some of my notes here, but I don't know if he's. I don't know. I don't know if he knows he's being had. He knows he has handlers. I don't know that. I know that I don't like what he's doing with Israel.
Yeah.
The vaccines.
I mean, to say Operation Warp Speed was the big thing for me.
He's shaking hands with the Pfizer dude a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like, really, man? Like, but he's doing this, he's doing that. Two wrongs don't
but it's all part of the plan. It's all part of the plan. Don't worry. It's just to make everybody think that, all the opposition think that he's a good guy and he's on their side. But really, he's working for us. He's working for our team. So don't worry about it. It's fine.
Don't get me wrong. I guess I'd rather have him than Biden.
Oh, yeah. Well, out, yeah.
But I just wish if you are truly awake and claim to be part of this alternative crowd, you'll realize that both hands are owned and operated by the same owners.
Absolutely.
It's like people used to post George Carlin, his videos, like people's like, yeah, George Carlin, I love George. But it's almost like you forgot what he said. They own you.
Yeah.
No matter what hand or what collar or what, we have owners and they own you.
It's a big club and you ain't in it.
Yes. That, like I said before we started recording, I don't know if I was recording yet, I don't know. But like, this is a peasant class, man. This is a Hunger Games society. You, me, people watching this, we will become president. We won't. You know what I mean?
And neither will our children. Well, mine certainly won't because I'm English, but you know what I mean.
But also, who I'm trying to pull up his Dr. John Coleman is.
Yeah, I do. Committee of 300, yeah.
Yeah. So he said, quote, there is not a single aspect of life in America that is not watched over, steered in the right direction, manipulated, and controlled by the invisible government of the Committee of 300. There is not one elected official or political leader that is not subject to its rule. No one thus far has gotten away with defying our secret rulers, who did not hesitate to make horrible example of anyone, including the President of the United States.
Exactly.
But he also said, and I wish I could find it. Damn. Maybe I'll find it here in a minute. But he also said you can't find every president. I think he said every president since, I don't remember when he said. I don't want to get on that yet. Okay. Because I want to try to find it and read what but so with Trump, we have the PNAC. Remember the PNAC documents, Project New American Century. You talked about them, wrote about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which was written a few years before Bush Jr. was sworn in. And one of the things, within that they talked about in PNAC, quote, control the new international commons of space, and cyberspace and pave the way for the creation of a new military service, U.S. Space Forces, with a mission to control space, end quote.
Right.
I got a question. What did Trump do in 2018 or 19? He created the Space Force.
Okay.
And this was, what I'm saying is he just part of that lockstep and key of the old guard too? He claims to be against the old guard, against rhinos and all that, but he's fulfilling the PNAC of what Bush and others have done with the Middle East. Everybody just needs to read the PNAC,
Yeah.
Like it says, control the new international commons of space and cyberspace and pave the way for creation of a new military service, U.S. Space Forces, with a mission of space control.
Right.
And he created the Space Force, the 6th military branch, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, as you say, he's just another puppet in a long line of them. Unfortunately, so sadly, I hate to disillusion all those folk out there who hang on his every word and believe there is our savior, but not in my opinion. I'm afraid there's too much evidence against. It's a simple equation for me.
See if here it is. See if I can actually play it. Here it is. John Coleman
revealed the existence of an organization called the Royal Institute for International Affairs, which is located at Chatham House in 10 St. James Square in London. I also revealed the existence of the Club of Rome, the Cini Foundation, the Mont Pelerin Society, the Order of St. John, which is known but not known. And I listed all of these secret societies that run the world as executive arms of the Committee of 300. So it controls the world through all of these. The Royal Institute for International Affairs is the executive arm of this committee, which gives instructions to the United States government to this very day. The chain of command is as follows. Every Secretary of State that has been appointed since 1919 is appointed by the Royal Institute for International Affairs. That may come as a shock for you. You think you vote and you put a conservative in the White House, and then he appoints supposedly or allegedly conservative people to carry out the policies that you wanted him to implement. Surprise, surprise. I asked you to find me a conservative Secretary of State since 1919. And if you search diligently and apply the correct rules, you'll come up big. Every one of the Secretaries of State was chosen in line.
So he is saying that I said president. So I watched that lecture, that 94 lecture, about a month or two back. And he said since 1919, every Secretary of State has been a part of the Committee of 300. This is Chatham House, which,
Yep. RIA.
So guess who our Secretary of State is? Marco Rubio. So I did some digging. And he has connections with Chatham House, Royal Institute of International Affairs. December 2013, as U.S. Senator, Rubio delivered a speech at Chatham House in London on American leadership and the future of the transatlantic alliance. There you go. Bam.
You know what? I will go much, much further than that. I wrote a book in 2016. It was published, called JFK, A Very British Coup. And I talk about all that kind of stuff in there. But what a lot of people are not aware of, both sides of the Atlantic, is that America, and this is going to come as a shock probably to you and definitely to most of your listenership, is actually still controlled through the UK, right? You were given your independence grudgingly after the War of Independence in 1776. But 95 years later, what happened was that America actually went bankrupt, physically bankrupt. It was on its knees, so it came crawling back to Britain. And by the way, I'm not a British patriot, so I've got no axe to grind on this. I'm not making this stuff up. This is all documented, and it's easy to find as well if you've got the will to do it. And Britain agreed to bailed America out on condition that it completely rewrote the Constitution and remained under the control, the indirect or direct even control of Great Britain. So people, mistakenly think that we're the 51st state. Unfortunately not. It's more or less the other way around. America is still owned and controlled from the UK. And I gone into massive length about this in my book, JFK, a British Coup, a very British coup. So anybody who's interested in looking into the background of that, this is all properly researched stuff. I'm not just making it up. I'm not just pulling it out of thin air. This is documented stuff. So I would advise anybody who's interested in that element to actually look at that. I mean, I could go into much more detail on that, but I guess you want to move on. So,
well, no, I've been talking way too damn much, John. But I guess we can go a little bit more in detail because I guess we can go a little bit there.
Yeah.
Because which I totally agree with you. I haven't read that book yet, but I've heard you mention it on other podcasts.
Right.
But some would say Israel controls everything. But I've also had Dean Henderson on a couple times this year. He wrote the Nephilim 5G Apocalypse, the Crown, Nephilim Crown.
Right.
And he believes this all based out of London with the Crown. Do you think the Crown's involved, or is it not just them? It's really just the elites in the UK in general, or what?
Yeah. I mean, you've got to kind of clarify what we mean by the Crown. It doesn't mean the royal family. No, the Crown, it refers to the what's called the British Crown Empire, which is the financial empire, the world financial empire, which is seated in the City of London. And by the City of London, I don't mean London itself. There's a specific area within London called the City, which is the financial district, and it's 1 square mile in the east of the city. And that is a separate state within a state, in much the same way that Washington, D.C. is in the States and the Vatican is in Italy. The Vatican is the seat of all religious power. Washington, D.C. is the seat of all the world's military power. And the City of London is the seat of all the world's financial power. Something like, I can't remember the figure off the top of my head, but again, it's in the book. But there's something like 270 banks from all over the world, including the States, whose headquarters are in that 1 square mile. Okay. Everything is controlled through the financial Crown Empire, as it's called. Just kind of touching a little bit on the Kennedy assassination while I'm here, if you may, because it's quite relevant.
Go anywhere, whatever you want to do, man.
Yeah. Well, what happened was, I mean, obviously Kennedy was he was no angel, don't get me wrong, but he was definitely the last, president who was working on behalf of the people. I have no doubt about that. But of course, he gained a lot of enemies. He fell out badly with the CIA, the FBI, Israel, the big oil, big pharma, Britain, you name it. There's a whole, even the Catholic Church. I mean, he was the Catholic president, but he fell out with the Catholic Church as well. And all these factions, where are all these factions controlled? I know this is going to sound crazy to most people. From the Crown Empire in London. So this is the premise of that book. And it was the assassination, as far as I can glean, was conducted by Britain's MI6. And two of the prime movers in that were a guy called Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond stories, and another guy, probably slightly less famous, called Roald Dahl, who writes children's stories. Now, you may have come across some of his books, but I don't know how popular they are in America, but he's quite big in the UK. So yeah, these two were MI6 agents. They were the prime movers. It wasn't MI6 that actually carried it out. It was actually the French Secret Service, something called Le Cercle, which carried out the assassination. And the whole thing is absolutely not what we've been told. I guess most people are aware of that anyway, but probably the British element is not so well known. But yeah, just to kind of end that bit and summarize, there's far more to it than that, but I don't want to bore everybody. But it is unfortunately, from your point of view, the United States is still heavily controlled, not totally, but heavily controlled from the UK because of this pact that was made in 1871 after the US had gone bankrupt and came back on its knees to the UK.
Well,
The bailout.
I'm kind of glad you went there because, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say infighting, I would say a lot of takes and theories, on that because, we had the bar system. The bar system was created out of UK.
Absolutely.
And then lawyers and all that, you got to get the bar, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And guess where that bar system is located?
UK.
The square mile of London, the city of London. Now, the city of London, I'll just say this bit, sorry to interrupt, is, like I say, it's a state within a state. It's had its own laws, it has its own police force, it has its own mayor, who is not the mayor of London, the bigger city. It is a separate mayor. Now, that mayor has absolute authority over that square mile of land. When the Queen, or now the King, needs to visit the city for any reason, on formal occasions, he is met at the gates of the city, which is called Temple Bar, which is where the bar comes from, in lawyer circles, and the King, has to bow to the mayor of the city of London. Okay, the whole thing is completely separate from the UK. There is no ties to it at all, other than a language, and there's no passports required, obviously similar to Washington, D.C. But yeah, it is a totally separate entity to the UK, and it is the financial empire of the world, just to repeat myself.
Is Chatham House, is that within that square mile also?
Yes, absolutely. And,
no shit. I didn't know where it was, but I was just guessing that it's probably part of that swamp right there.
Yeah. And the RIIA, the Royal Institute of International Affairs that you mentioned before. Yeah, it's all there. Fascinating stuff. And I would urge anyone to look into it. Like I say, I don't take any pride in the fact that, that's the case, but, it's at least worth a look, and it's not hard to find that information.
And also, I believe the UK created the Admiralty Law or whatever. With the, am I saying that right? With the
yellow fringe.
Yes, I believe that. Like, what's up with that? I think that came straight out of the same, exactly what you're talking about, I believe.
Yeah, because there was something called the Magna Carta. In 1215, so 800 years ago, that was a promise by the royalty of the time that the country would operate under common law, because up until then it had been pretty lawless, and basically the people in charge did what they want. But then something called the common law was devised, and the common law is very, very simple indeed. It just states that you shall not do harm to anyone. That's it. That is common law in a nutshell. Okay, I've exaggerated slightly, but in a nutshell, that's what it is. But Admiralty law came about in I can't remember which century it was, but it's a few hundred years ago. And what they did was they bypassed the Magna Carta, in effect, by bringing in the law of the sea. Instead of the common law is the law of the land, so they brought in the law of the sea with all the terminology. In the court, you have the dock and all that kind of stuff. There's loads and loads of stuff like that. So yeah, it was an attempt to, gain more control over the common herd, and they've been successful doing it. And of course, that went across the Atlantic to the good old US as well. And so again, for anyone who's listening, watching, if you see a Stars and Stripes with the yellow fringe around it, which is used by the military, it's also used in your courts of law as well, just as the Union flag, the British Union flag with a yellow fringe, is used in our courts of law and with the military as well. And that signifies that they are operating under Admiralty law, the law of the sea, with all its inherent terminology and bypassing the real common law.
and also the District of Columbia. You know, well, where is that's also stems from the UK, also, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure where the name Columbia comes from, but it's actually, I don't think it's I think it's actually goes back even further than that. It's either Greek or Roman in origin, that particular thing. But again, the powers that shouldn't be, as I like to call them, they revel in all this ancient history, Greek, Romans, because to be fair, these people who run us with an iron fist in a velvet glove, they are all descended from the people of those times, from the rulers of those times in ancient Greece and in ancient Rome. So they brought with them through the centuries a lot of their customs and a lot of their terminology. And I can't remember exactly what Columbia is or means, but yeah, it stems from that period in time. Yeah.
So, and I agree with you. I've also had many years ago, man, I guess 15 years ago, I interviewed Michael Tessarian a couple times.
Oh yeah.
And he talked about, well, he wrote an article about the Constitution Con. I can't even paraphrase it. Well, I can kind of paraphrase it, but it's been so long since I've read it. But he has an article on his website. I think it's still michaeltessarian.com or something like that. Yeah. Maybe unslave.com now. But when he talked about the Constitution Con, how basically it was hijacked. It was, that they knew they wanted to give basically us the false illusion of freedom over here while they implanted their own molds through Freemasonry and all that. And,
exactly.
And while they were still secretly and covertly working for, I guess, the Crown, the British Empire. That's just to sum it up. It goes much more in detail.
Yeah.
Been years.
I know.
That. So is the Crown, do you think that's the head of the Hydra? What I mean here is, so a lot of people are blaming Israel. Yes, I don't like supporting Israel. Like, I don't like supporting all these other countries. I think it's like 100 billion. That's what I think I put it in an AI system, and I think it said, like, we're giving foreign assistance and everything else, like, to the NATO and other countries. I think it's like 100 billion a year or 200 billion a year, something like that. Like, I'm tired of all that, man. We got people dying with fentanyl, and just there's so many other things we got to worry about. Use some of that money to actually find a cure for cancer. Well, I'm sure we already got a cure for cancer, but anyways, so people are blaming Israel, and some people think the deep state's here in the United States. Is the U.S. and Israel just two heads of the main head that is the Crown, you think?
It's a tricky one. A bit of a cop out there, but
why I say that is because you are exactly right. We are basically created by the Crown.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Rothschild, I forgot which one. He's basically over there in your neck of the woods. And he helped create Israel.
Yep.
And
its ancestors did, yeah.
So I'm just trying to connect dots there,
Yeah.
So
yeah. It is a tricky one. No, I don't think anyone, certainly not at our level, not on the plateau that we're on, knows the full extent of what is really going on at the top of the pyramid. Not for sure, anyway. There's lots of speculation. But my own belief is that these people, although they present the appearance of being coordinated and all pulling together, singing from the same hymn sheet, I think there is a lot of conflict at the top as well, personally. And there is a power struggle going on. So you get the Rothschilds, you get Israel, you get the Crown Empire, and you get factions within the states as well, and probably within other countries as well. And they're all vying for power and influence. Some of the stuff that they're doing is concerted and, coordinated. But a lot of the stuff, I think there is, as I say, a power struggle going on. So it's very hard indeed to actually say this faction is the head of the Hydra, or this one is it. You know, in my view, and that's the best I can come to after 28 years of research, I'm afraid. I don't think anyone really knows those, to be honest, Mike.
Who was it? Brzezinski, whatever.
Zbigniew Brzezinski.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not going there yet.
Okay.
Not going there yet. Like I said, I try to well prepare for this, but after we knew our dog was about to go down, and it was a bad couple of days. But so Alice Bailey wrote 1942. Quote, behind the divisions of humanity stand those enlightened ones whose right and privilege it is to watch over human evolution and to guide the destinies of men. This they do through the implanting of ideas in the minds of the world thinkers, so that these ideas in due time receive recognition, eventually become controlling factors in human life. They train the members of the new group of world servers in the task of changing these ideas and ideals. These, in their turn, become and desired objectives of the thinkers and are then taught to the powerful middle class and worked up into world forms of government or religion, thus forming the basis of the new world order into which masses are patiently incorporated. And do you think that the new world servers, and basically what she's saying there, do you think that she's talking about like these think tank groups?
Yeah.
Basically, do you think that's where a lot of it is? Like you said, there's really no way to tell exactly where the top of the pyramid is. Like, where's, because I want to pull, or it could be the base of a house of cards, the very bottom. Like, I want to pull the bottom layer out so the whole thing can collapse. Like, or, you know, try to see what is closer to the top of the pyramid, you know. But is that what is actually shaping worldviews, opinions, ideologies? Is these think tank groups, and they get in there with these rich elites, and they lobby, and they get in with these politicians and all this, and they get together, and it's like kind of lay out the blueprint for humanity to abide by and to see where the future needs to go and all this. And we're basically, but the thing is, if they're laying out the blueprint for the world, though, a lot of these think tanks, Chatham House, World Institute of International Affairs, and others, so many others.
Yeah.
But who gives them the idea to create these blueprints? That's the thing. Or does it just come from them? You know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean. I think they're absolutely, totally under the control of whoever sits up here at the apex, without a doubt. These people use these so-called think tanks. And by the way, doesn't it sound nice and, you know, cozy and you know, oh, it's a think tank. It kind of creates the impression that these people are there to further humanity, when in actual fact they're just there to further the suppression of humanity and further the interests of the people who sit up here. So yeah, it is controlled from the top. Absolutely, they're not independent in any way, shape, or form. So people don't be fooled by that particular idea.
Give me what your gut tells you. Speculate. So, do you think the top is maybe like some type of a different type of bloodline, like maybe part of this Nephilim, offshoot of Nephilim bloodline, or some whatever, you know what I mean? Like, well, what, whatever. What does your gut tell you that might
yeah, I think it's very, very possible that these people are, I wouldn't say not human. That's probably an exaggeration. They are human, but I think they are a different kind of breed of people. You know, they're all psychopaths. We know they're all psychopaths, and they're brought up from birth to be psychopaths. But I suspect that they're also to a large extent, born psychopaths. I think that trait has been inbred into them over the centuries. So yeah, they're a breed apart to us. There's no doubt about it. And yeah, I mean, other than that, it really is speculation. I don't like speculating. I try to deal in facts wherever I can, and I don't really have the facts where this is concerned.
I know, and that's what's so aggravating, John. Is because sometimes it's like because a lot of the facts they're falsified. Our history, just like you talked about, is falsified. History
Yeah.
written by the victors. That doesn't mean it's true. So all the other shit gets burned, whitewashed,
Yeah.
thrown out in the burners. But DC, modern academia, the mainstream news, they're spitting out this. It's got to be true. So what are we left with? Speculation. It's hard to pinpoint the dots here and find exactly what's the hell's going on without having to throw in a little speculation.
Yeah.
It's just that's what's so aggravating, John. It's just fair to get the facts,
Yeah. I mean, the way I tend to operate, I have this little thing that I say and that I use, and that is, I say, I do this in my stand-up talks, I write about it in my books occasionally. I have this thing that I believe is exactly how I operate and how, people who are looking to find the truth should operate too. And that is, I believe that the world is like a 10 billion or whatever number piece jigsaw puzzle. Okay, it's similar to that. Reality is a 10 billion piece jigsaw puzzle. The more of the pieces you can put into place through knowing the facts, the clearer the picture becomes. And of course, what happens when you're doing a jigsaw puzzle, the clearer the picture becomes, that then enables you to put in other pieces that you weren't quite sure about before. But all of a sudden they fit, and then okay, that makes the picture even clearer, and so on and on it goes. I'm not saying I've got the whole jigsaw puzzle in my head, far from it, but there are areas of that puzzle that I am pretty convinced about, not because necessarily I have all the facts, but because it makes a lot of sense to put those pieces there in that place. The shape fits.
Well said, John. Exactly. Well said, man. And you was talking about these psychopaths, whoever's at the top, right?
Yeah.
So, Terrence Howard, I played this a few times. Terrence Howard he's a popular actor. He's been in a lot of movies, in Hollywood, but this is how I think it's done. Like there's some type of non-human, I don't mean like an alien, you know what I mean? I mean like there's a force.
Yeah.
Archonic, I don't know. But there's some type of, here's what, and maybe these elite fuckers, they do these seances, these rituals or whatever, adrenochrome, blood sacrifice, I don't know, whatever. They sell their souls to the dark side. But this is, in a roundabout way, what I'm about to show you, in a roundabout way, this is what I think these elite fuckers do. Let me just go ahead and play this. Here's share sound. Boom.
Can you explain that?
Well, as an actor, you're more like a medium.
Mm-hmm.
When you really get there, you go into this zone and you really divorce yourself of who you are, and you just become a garment that something else puts on. Now,
Right.
a lot of people sit up there and do impersonations of other folks, instead of allowing that spirit, but I sit up and I'll pray for a little bit and go in a dark place, go in the bathroom, turn off the lights, look in the mirror. We'll have the light on at first, and then after 1 minute, turn the light off and, and search until you see your own glow, your own aura, and then you watch it change.
Wow.
And it's a scary thing because you'll feel like some hands are on you,
Wow.
and you lose a little bit of control of what you're doing. But, if you stay with it, you'll be inhabited by something, and then you'll walk out
That's what I think is
Yeah.
top. Now, what's inhabiting them? You know what I mean? I don't know. Something demonic, whatever, some type of force.
Right.
I don't think it's more like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You know what I mean? It's more like it's almost like this cosmic Wi-Fi signal. Oh, you want to let me in? And it's almost like this this demonic cosmic Wi-Fi signal knows that you're an elite fucker, that, you have a lot of potential here. You got billions, and you could be. So yes, I will inhabit you. You want me to inhabit you? I will inhabit you. And it's almost like, but it's not like they're being ran, whatever this force is. Like he said, Terrence Howard, yes, you'll be inhabited by something, a spirit or something like that. It's not like they're being controlled. Like, it's like, whatever, it's not them anymore. If it's Ross, whoever, it's not them anymore. It's more like this force that puts like this virus within your genetic makeup or your mental synapses or something. It's like a computer virus, or something. Because these fuckers aren't human, John. You know what I mean? I don't mean like alien. It's like they're not these elites. A lot of
They're not like us. That's for sure. They're not like us.
There's nothing there, man.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're non-player characters. It's like there's nothing there.
Yeah, shells. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And but I mean, again, we can't prove it, can we? But it's a possibility. These people that are kind of taken over and given promises of the earth as well. All these these so-called celebrities who infest our media and TV screens and all the rest of it. They are all on some kind of a promise of fame and riches. So I think that's part of the deal as well, personally.
So I guess before we shift a little bit, I know you wrote about the Titanic also.
I did.
Did that have anything to do with some of the current mess that we're in today? Like, because I know it has connections with the Federal Reserve, I believe. With the Astor family, I think JP Morgan was supposed to be on the ship or something. He actually had his bust, I think, on this ship. If I'm mistaken, I don't remember. But explain a little bit with the connections with the Titanic, with the Crown, with the Federal Reserve, 1913. And this basically, because I believe a lot of what we're dealing with today stems back to then. Not all of it, but a good piece of the puzzle, Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely an indirect, if not an overtly direct connection between the Titanic and the formation of the Federal Reserve. And the formation of the Federal Reserve was basically the demise of America in many ways, because the Federal Reserve is not a federal institution. As I guess a lot of people already know that, but bear with me. I'm coming on to the main question that you asked me. But yeah, the Federal Reserve is not a federal institution at all. It is a privately owned institution with stockholders, and it controls the American monetary system. I mean, I could go on at massive length about the Federal Reserve itself, but let's talk a little bit about the connections to the Titanic and how the Federal Reserve came about. But we have to go back in history slightly, as we always do when we're talking about this stuff, because these things don't happen in isolation. It's always part of a chain of events. So the chain of events was that in the early part of the 19th century, the 1800s, America had a central bank, which is what the Federal Reserve is. It is in effect a central bank. Central bank being the bank that controls the currency of the nation within which it sits. So America had a central bank. It got into all sorts of financial difficulties through that. and eventually it was scrapped. But there were forces within that kept fighting and fighting and fighting to get back the central bank scenario, because it was making those financiers a lot of money, and which it still does to this day, of course, it being a private institution. So that went on for a while. There was an internal struggle going on, and then eventually they formed another central bank, which was called the Second Bank of the United States, something like that. I can't remember the exact title. It was something like that. Makes sense, of course. And then eventually the same thing happened. It was found that it was draining all the resources of the country, which again they do inherently, and that was scrapped as well. So there was a group of people like J.P. Morgan and his ilk in the late 19th century, early 20th century, who were desperate to get the central bank scheme back on board. And of course, at that point in time, because America had no central bank as such, it had no national debt, because it is the central banks that create the national debt. And I won't go into all that because I'm getting way off topic, but yeah, just bear with me on that. So, and in parallel with all that, well, first of all, there was a meeting in 1910. I think a lot of people will know this, off the coast of Georgia at oh God, my brain. What's the name of that island?
Jekyll Island.
That's it, Jekyll Island, off the coast of Georgia, where a big meeting was held with all the top financiers in the states, and they decided that they were going to promulgate this idea of another central bank, which was going to be called the Federal Reserve. J.P. Morgan was part of that. He was a big mover in that, and in parallel with that, he also owned a shipping line called the White Star Line, which he'd bought in 1908, so 2 years previously. Now, he had this idea, and it was a very good idea. It was a very clever idea because he wasn't a stupid man, to change the focus on transatlantic travel. Because, as most people are aware, in those days, there was a lot of immigrants coming to America from all over Europe and probably elsewhere as well, but it was the European ones that we're focusing on. And transatlantic travel was very dangerous in those days, and very, very lucrative for the shipping companies, because they were shipping thousands upon thousands of people over every single day, day after day, week after week, year after year. So Morgan devised this idea whereby instead of just getting people over in total squalor, which is what they were, he wanted to make the actual voyage itself a nice experience for people. Whereas before it was just regarded as just getting from point A to point B, he thought he would make the whole experience much more enjoyable and thereby attract more customers, which is what he did. So he had this idea to build three new ocean liners, and they were to be the Olympic, the Titanic, and the Britannic. And the Olympic was the first one to be completed, which was closely followed by Titanic, and then much later, after the Titanic incident, the Britannic came on board. But they were all virtually identical. They were built from the same blueprints. They had minor differences, but they were virtually identical to the untrained eye. So what happened was Olympic was launched in early 1911, but Morgan had sunk so much of his own money into it, that he was desperate that it started to pay for itself very, very quickly. Otherwise, he was going to be in big trouble. Let alone the White Star Line and Harland and Wolff, the shipyard in Belfast, Ireland, which built it. Okay, so unfortunately for Morgan and his plans, Olympic was a bit of a jig ship. It had 3 serious accidents in its first few months of sailing, and it spent more time back in the shipyard than it did ferrying people across the Atlantic. So Morgan was getting desperate. And then the really bad news was that the third one, it actually collided with a British battleship in the English Channel on one of its voyages. It was actually the battleship's crew. Well, it was the battleship's fault because apparently the steering jammed and the two came together at very high speed. But unfortunately, when there's an accident of any kind with a British Royal Navy ship, there has to be an inquiry conducted by the Royal Navy. And of course, what happened was the Royal Navy found in favour of the battleship, which was called HMS Hawke, and that meant that Morgan was not only liable for all the damage to Olympic itself, because the insurance was null and void because it was deemed to be the crew of the Olympic's fault, but it was also liable for the repairs to the battleship as well, which were extensive, but to both ships. Now, when they actually managed to get it back to Belfast, which was the only dry dock big enough to take it, to inspect the damage properly, because it was the biggest ship in the world at that time, and that was the biggest dry dock in the world. It was the only one big enough to take it. They found, to their absolute, horror, that the ship was not repairable. It had a bent keel, amongst myriad of other. HMS Hawke had a huge battering ram on the front because it was a battleship, and it penetrated right into the innards of the ship, bent the keel, and absolutely created a huge hole in the side. And so Olympic, sadly for Morgan, had to be declared a wreck, and it was actually declared a wreck. There's no denying that; it's documented. So he hatched a plan, to kill two birds with one stone. Now, just moving on to the other thread of the story, in the US at that time, there was a huge campaign that was fighting the people trying to bring the Federal Reserve into being. And this was led by a guy called John Jacob Astor, and his sidekick was Benjamin Guggenheim, and a guy by the name of Isidor Straus, who owned Macy's department store, and he was also big in finance as well. Now, they were totally against the Federal Reserve, and they built up a huge groundswell of support down the eastern seaboard, where it all happens in the States. And they were winning. But Morgan hatched this plan to kill two birds with one stone. So what he did was he switched. I mean, this sounds fantastic to people. I know people just think it's absolute nonsense, but it's true. I present lots of proof in my book, RMS Olympic. He hatched a plan whereby it would swap the identities of Titanic and Olympic, because they were virtually identical. It didn't take much work to do the switch. It was done by a specialized crew. They were paid a heck of a lot of money to do it, but they were warned that if they ever breathed a word of what was going on outside the dock gates, then they would never work again, and neither would any of their families. And that, in those days, that was virtually a death sentence. So this is what the identity of the ship. This is putting a very long story short, by the way. I know it sounds like a long story, but it's not. I once did a 4-hour podcast on this and did cover everything. So yeah, I'll just wrap it up now. But so what he did was they swapped the identities of the ship. They sank Olympic as Titanic, and Titanic, the original Titanic, which became Olympic, plied its trade across the Atlantic for the next 25 years till it was scrapped. Morgan's ass was saved, and also, who were the main three first-class passengers on Titanic? The very three men who led the fight against the Federal Reserve. And after that, the whole campaign against the Federal Reserve just collapsed. And just over a year later, the Federal Reserve came into being, and America's national debt started. And it's now something like 20. Last time I looked, it was about 23 trillion, but it could be more. And who is that money owed to?
It's 37 trillion, I believe.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, and who is that money owed to? It's not owed to, foreign countries. It's not owed to the government. It's owed to the bankers who run the Federal Reserve. That's who the national debt is owed to, and it's the same with every central bank. So yeah, I mean, that was a very, very brief snapshot, and I know it probably took me.
No, please, man, you can take 20 minutes if you need to. Like I said earlier, I talked way too damn much in the beginning, but
it's all right.
But when I have my guest on, it's their show. I just kind of help narrate it. But that pisses me off, man. Like, when it comes to the feds, like, they say we're 30, I think I'm 95% positive it's 37 trillion, because I just looked this up a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
but
you're probably right.
Like, who the fuck do we owe this money to? Like, is it really just the head of the like the feds? Like, we're in debt to, like, it's so aggravating. So y'all created this whole shit that we're in, and then you say we're in debt to these people. You don't know exactly who this money's going to. You claim that you want to fight the deep state. Fight that motherfucker right there. Excuse my French, but you know what I mean? It's like, but no, we can't do that, like, who exactly? Like, I know I'm asking you to speculate some, but I don't think it's just going to the CEO of, I know some of those people are tied in with Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, but who exactly, man, are we in 37 trillion in debt to?
The major stockholders of the Federal Reserve. The CEO of the Federal Reserve, whoever that is at the moment, I have no idea. It used to be a guy called Bernard Bernanke, was it?
Yeah, I just looked this up. You can keep speaking. I'll look him up.
Yeah, whoever that is. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously a stockholder of the Federal Reserve, but he's not a major stockholder. The major stockholder, it's privileged information. You'll never find out who they are. It's the same with the Bank of England, which is our version of the Federal Reserve.
It's like Jerome Powell.
Right. Okay.
Jerome Powell.
Nobody. I never heard of him, but nobody knows who the stockholders of the Bank of England are as well. It's privileged information, and they will not release it. So we suspect we know that. It's mainly the Rothschild. It's okay. Let's be honest. The Rockefellers are in there somewhere as well, and a lot of the elite families. But it is those people. But they hide behind this wall of silence, and you never get to know what's really going on there. But yeah, it's a sad state of affairs.
But I did do some digging a little while back, a couple months back. I used to feel bad about talking about Israel, in the early days. I don't care anymore, man. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that they're the tip of the spear at all.
No.
But
they're used as a tool. They are used as a tool.
Yes.
They're used as a weapon.
You see how conditioning, even me, after researching all these years, I basically woke up in 2006 when I came back from basic training, Army basic training. I had all this money, so I bought a laptop, and one of the first things I saw was a fuzzy ass video hitting the Pentagon, a plane hitting the Pentagon. I'm like, that's it? That's the only thing they have? You know what I mean? I'm like, and I just went down a rabbit hole from there. I'm like, yeah, I just signed a 6-year contract, But right. But anyways, I did some digging and a few months back, and I forgot how many people has been over the Federal Reserve, the chair or whatever. I think it's been like, it's in the teens, like maybe 12 to 16 or 20 or something like that. And over half of them were Jewish.
Oh yeah.
But yet they only make 2% of the U.S. population.
Yeah, but it's the same throughout society, isn't it, Mike? I mean, it's not just the Federal Reserve. You're talking about Congress. You're talking about the Senate. Everything. It's massively overpopulated with the Jewish influence, and usually
it's actually less than 2%, I believe. I think it's like 1.8 or 1.6 or something.
Yeah,
like
of the whole population. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they're massively overrepresented in all the corridors of power, in every element of it. In Hollywood as well, of course, and anything influential. The media, the media is massively overpopulated with these people, and they are Israel first, as most of them.
But yet they want to make me feel bad for being white guilt. But yet, less than 2% of the population own everything, or own per capita own, you would say per capita own more than white people.
Yeah.
That are a part of the corruption of the U.S., and the world, I guess.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not just the US. This is the whole of the Western world. Things are slightly different in other parts of the world, but basically the same idea. a very disproportionate proportion of the population controls the rest, and it's always been that way.
What about
Well,
what about Jewish guilt? You know what I mean? Well, I'm kind of getting on the guilt thing because here in the U.S., it's everything's racist and
that's to say,
it was really bad under Biden, but I'm like, dude, yes, I know we have done some really fucked up shit. Don't get me wrong, but we are the majority here. So per capita, a lot of the corruption is less than 2% of the population. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Hollywood, music industry, the banking industry,
Mm.
everything. I'm just
Yeah, I
saying.
mean, don't get me wrong. There's good and bad in all ethnic groups, in
Exactly.
any group that you care to name. No matter how you divide it up. But there just seems to be a disproportionate amount of evil in the world compared to certain demographics, shall we say?
Yeah. Anyways, you were talking earlier about you're not doing it for the money. I'm not either. Well, I guess I kind of went down some dark roads. I'm not gonna lie. Where I started, like, man, I want to get my podcast big. Which my YouTube, it's like 41,000 subscribers. My Facebook page is big, actually, but I don't ever use it. I have 200,000 followers on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
I don't ever use it. I guess I should. But that's my thing. It's like I've been doing this long enough where the podcast, where I've seen a lot of insider baseball, I guess. Like I hear people, I'm not going to throw these people out under the bus or nothing, but where they talking about, man, you ought to do this. You make so much money doing this or that. And I'm talking about some pretty popular podcasts, that I've had conversations with, and I'm like, man, people just don't even know. People are following these. That doesn't make them bad individuals at all. But it kind of goes back to the beginning of our conversation when I kind of took over a little bit there for a while with my rant, is that there are so many great guest researchers out there that aren't on these big podcast platforms. And again, we've got to quit thinking that they're the end all be all when it comes to truth, knowing and understanding and wisdom and all that, and knowing where we come from and the current events, the everything. Like people like you, people I've had over the past 15 years, for the most part, those are the people that need to be listened to, researched, read their material, like your books. I've only read the two, the falsification of history and science also.
Okay.
But I haven't read your other books yet.
Okay.
But
Forgive you.
But that's, I don't know that. I'm getting back on that soap opera again. But sometimes I just get bitter because I see it's like this alternative. I can't put my finger on it, John, and it's aggravating. There's this hack of the alternative community. David Icke actually is saying a lot of good stuff on X, man. He's saying a lot of good. He sees it too. There's this hack. I don't know what the hell's been going on. It kind of started when Trump came in. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, there's this also this Christian uprising. I think that's manufactured also with Charlie Kirk. There's this weird puppet master something going on with alternative crowd. There's like the alternative crowd that everybody's clinging to, that everybody follows, the popular people, the ones that are on the big podcasts, the big talk shows. that alternative crowd, and then there's this other alternative crowd that's been doing this for a long time also, or if not longer, that are really awake and haven't been really awake. They've been awake a lot longer than just 2016 or 2020 during the COVID. Everybody, I'm awake now because of COVID. That's good.
Yeah.
But now you have millions of followers and you only been awake basically since COVID. What?
Yeah, it's weird. It's too weird, that, isn't it, to be
I
real?
don't know, man. I live in this twilight zone, man. It's
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. It's just I feel like the alternative truth community has been hijacked. And
without a doubt. I mean, they infiltrate us and they divide and conquer, and this is how they deal with it. This is how they deal, because this, at the end of the day, these people are scared. They're scared of us. They're more scared of us than we are of them, I think. Just my view. But they if we got our collective acts together, we would be an unstoppable force. But we've got far more members than they do, if you want to put it in that kind of strange way. But if we could get our collective acts together instead of being in this disparate mess, which it is, the truth movement, isn't it? Let's be honest. If we were coordinated in any way, in the same way that they are, they're not perfect, but they are far more coordinated than we are, then they would be in trouble, and they know it. And this is why they have to resort to all these tactics like, infiltration, divide and conquer.
And I could just bring up one example. Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, dude, what the hell happened with him?
Yeah.
Yes, he spits out some good information, breadcrumbs.
Mm-hmm.
But if you listen to his older shit, that dude was on another level when he was younger. Like, I don't think he was hijacked then or something.
No.
Because, dude, he didn't trust nobody in D.C.
No.
That's how it should be. Like, you should hold everybody accountable. He didn't. Exactly. He was calling everybody out, man.
Yeah.
He was, and now it's like, I really don't like Trump supporting the vaccines, blah, blah, blah. And then the next day or maybe a couple minutes later, but Trump's done this, and that, we gotta support, and like, what?
And there's no way that guy would have got the level of viewership, popularity that he has without being some kind of an inside guy, because they just wouldn't allow it. They would shut him down. That he would be silenced in one way or another.
Well, then, John, you will say but they are silencing him. They're trying to take InfoWars away. No, with the Sandy Hook.
By silencing, I mean really silencing him.
I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean. I was playing devil's advocate because I know what other people would say.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't think, and maybe even he, I don't know, but a lot of other people that the big wigs up there that everybody glamour to, right? Now, I don't think they all know or knowingly know that they're being played or used, or some of them probably purposely did sell out, shake hands,
Yeah.
But I don't think all of them have. But
I agree. I mean, a lot of them are too dumb to even realize that, to be honest.
Yeah.
When you see the state of some of them, I mean, honestly, you just think, my God.
Yeah. I guess I'm just a fan of history.
Right.
And I love researching and being a choir boy, a fanboy of older researchers that's been in this field, that's paved the way for all these years. You're one of them. Like I said again, I'll say it again.
Thank you.
All these other guests and all these other great minds I've had on this podcast past 15 years. Not all of them, but I will say 75% of them.
Right.
They paved the way, and a lot of them no longer here. But it's like we forget the ones that have paved the way, and it's like, screw all those people. Now I'm talking about the alternative crowd. Screw all those people, and now let's just cling to whatever's popular, and whatever is
Yeah.
trendy in the alternative crowd, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know. I really don't have, like I said, I'm about to get off of it again. I keep getting on that damn soap opera, man. It's just, I see this weird shit going on. I just can't put my finger on it.
Right.
But anyways, move on. So, I do have this actually for a note, and I've mentioned this before. I actually mentioned this to Joseph Farrell. Interviewed, you know who Joseph Farrell is, right?
No.
He wrote the Cosmic War and the
Okay. No.
the banksters. I forgot. He's written a lot of books.
Okay.
But I had a brain fart there. I was trying to think of the other book. I was really trying, the banksters something. But anyways, so the concept of a global reset and or mind controlling the population operates much like the psychological conditioning methods used in the military basic training to forge the ideal soldier. And John, I can attest to this because, you know, I went through basic training back in 2005. I was there during Katrina, actually. And, you know, I live in Louisiana. Katrina was, you know, but anyways, the process begins with a deliberate tearing down of the individual, physically, mentally, and emotionally, through perpetual, carefully engineered chaos. They use fear and stress as the primary tool for this tearing down process. Once the old identity of the soldier is shattered through this tearing down process, what remains now is a blank canvas. Over time, the individual or soldier ceases to think independently while becoming a part of the collective hive mind unit. Basically, the soldier is a part of the cog in the machinery to form and behave like a bunch of ants that are programmed to act in lockstep with the rest of the collective group. If the military, John, has perfected this state of mind control conditioning to create new soldiers, who's to say that the government and or globalist think tanks, etc., top of the pyramid, hasn't perfected the same conditioning process throughout the decades and time to condition the perfect hive mind slave within society?
Yeah, well, they have, haven't they? I mean, you know, there's no doubt about that. And, you know, one of the things that I often get into discussions about with my friends and associates is what makes someone like us question everything, whereas other people just accept everything that they're told. And I've never, ever been able to come to a conclusion about that, really. But just that quote that you just read out there.
That was actually, I actually wrote that.
Oh, you wrote that?
I wrote that. That's why I said I want to get you back on, man, because usually a lot of times, and I'll give you the floor, but a lot of times when I prepare for I told you, you know, we knew the dog was about to go. It's been a rough couple of days. I didn't get to take a lot of notes that I usually like to.
Yeah.
But I hit this zone when it's like I hit this zone when I'm in front of the computer, laying in my recliner or in bed with my laptop, and I hit this zone. I don't know. You get these downloads, and I write good stuff, because if I don't write it down, I'll forget during the podcast. I'll just say crap off the top of my head, kind of like I did within this interview. So,
would you mind sending me that quote?
I will, man.
Yeah, because I think it's absolutely spot on. I think it's great, and I might even use it in one of my books with your permission.
Yes. Oh, I have a lot. I have. One day I'll eventually write a book because I have a lot of notes that I've taken over the years, you know. But
right.
But yeah, you're about to say something before I chimed in.
I've forgotten now. It's the old brain, you know.
But this was something I was wanting to ask you earlier.
Right.
So based on your research, you know, I did write a few notes, but how do these groups work together to gain power and to shape what the public thinks? You know, like, because I know we talked about it. I know we talked about some of the think tankers and other things, but how do they exactly influence the world events? You know what I mean? Like, by staging false flags, for one example, you know, John, to help further their agendas. How does this pass down? How do they? Because it's almost like they're Fabian like ways or whatever. It's like it's slow, methodical, because this agenda, whatever, has been going on for a long time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How does it get passed down? Like,
right,
I don't understand, because I feel like it's just one it's very slow, methodical throughout time. This enslavement of mankind, you know.
Well, it partly gets passed down through the generations, through the psychopathic families that we talked about earlier. But nowadays, I mean, there are actually training schools for these people. There's something that which you may or may not be aware of within the WEF, the World Economic Forum, which is one of the big players, by the way. They're the ones that instigated the fake pandemic of a few years ago. The WEF have something called the Young Leaders Program. And in that Young Leaders Program, they groom them and train them to future world leaders. And you'll find that just about, probably not, maybe not in the States, because presidents tend to be older guys, but throughout, most of the Western world, these people come to prominence. Like, the Prime Minister of the UK at the minute, Keir Starmer, David Cameron before him, a couple of prime ministers before him, Boris Johnson, they all come through this program. Trudeau in Canada, Macron in France, they were all part of this WEF program, and they're brainwashed and conditioned to do the bidding of the people who sit up here. It's a simple process, but it's very effective. So yeah, again, there's so many different elements to it, I believe, and I'm probably not even aware of all the different elements to it, but that is a very prominent one. And anyone out there who's not heard of the WEF Young Leaders Program, I would suggest you look it up, because it is very, very enlightening, and it goes a long way towards explaining how these people maintain control over most of the world.
Did you mention Trudeau? I don't know if you did. I know Trudeau.
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
He was part of it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But, and also you mentioned divide and conquer earlier. It's the name of the game, John.
Absolutely.
The globalists want us divided and fighting amongst each other. They want civil war, civil unrest. It's no different than Henry Kissinger, because we got a lot of the ICE and all the crap. It's almost like they want civil war. I don't know what's going on, but it's no different than Henry Kissinger, Soros, and others going into countries and destabilizing those countries. The same tactics they used are the very same tactics that these globalists are using within this country, United States. They're playing the game of right versus left off on each other. They're balkanizing this country incrementally instead of splitting this country into small areas of land to destabilize. They're balkanizing this country and its people through means of psychological warfare.
Yeah. It's classical Hegelian dialectic. Problem, reaction, solution. Create a problem, wait for the reaction, and then offer the solution, which is one that they prepared earlier. So they create a problem by causing civil unrest in this case, for example, and then they want people to clamour for the solution. The solution is, we'll clamp down even more and restrict more freedoms. That'll fix it. Oh, good idea, government. Yeah. Why didn't we think of that? Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. So, and this was something also, fear, because I didn't want to cut you off earlier.
No.
You mentioned something about fear. I think that is one of the biggest things when it comes to psychological conditioning, and then it made me think of my quote, or not my quote. I guess it's my quote that I wrote in 2015. I posted on social media, so I pulled it up and I stated this was from 2015. Keep us in perpetual state of fear as a psychological weapon that the elite use to control the masses, and it works. The Great Crash in 1929, Pearl Harbor, Cold War, communism, Vietnam, Iraq War, 9/11, virus outbreaks, vaccinations, terrorism, mass shootings, asteroid threats. The list goes on and on. What's next?
Yeah.
It's all orchestrated and manipulated to mentally enslave us like sheep, keeping us afraid of the wolves while we blindly follow the shepherd.
Absolutely. I say this all the time. I do a lot of stand-up talks around the country, and people often say to me at the end, John, how do you keep saying amidst all this crazy madness? And I say, and they say, because I'm so scared of the future, and I say to them invariably, The only thing that you have to fear is fear itself. And I know that's a really glib saying. It's a cliche, isn't it? But it's so true. They want us in a state of fear because a fearful people are much, much easier to control. And this is, I say this till I'm blue in the face. Yeah, people don't get it, but so many people are living in fear these days, fear of this, that, and the other. We're talking about COVID coming back now, so that's all over the media, and oh my goodness, oh, we're all gonna die, It's just a constant bombardment.
Yes, it is. But I guess we need to round things up. But also, Bertrand Russell also said collective fear, and he said in Unpopular Essays, I think in the 30s or 40s, collective fear stimulates herd instinct and tends to produce ferocity towards those who are not regarded as members of the herd.
Yes, absolutely. It's very true, isn't it?
And what do we have right now in the U.S.? Like, I wouldn't say it's an offshoot of fear. The Antifa, and these groups, the immigrants, Russia. Oh, back to Russia. Like, did you know that I think they're only like, I think 500 billion in debt. I think that they're not even a trillion in debt, like as a nation. That they're almost self-sufficient in a way.
Yeah.
And we're 37 trillion, and other countries are trillions in debt also.
Yeah.
So who's writing the orders for everybody to be against Russia after all these years? Is it because that they're not being in lockstep with the agenda, that they're like they're like, fuck the Fed, we're not going to bankrupt our country like everybody else has,
Yeah, although Russia does have a central bank, a Rothschild central bank, so yeah, that's probably not one of the reasons. I think the reason is that they're just fake enemies. They just create these enemies for us to hate, because I think Putin is part of the problem. I think Putin is part of the gang. They're all jolly boys together. They're it's theater.
Exactly.
They're running a show for us, basically. All this Ukraine war and all that, and NATO versus Russia, and it's just theater. It's divide and conquer. It's the Hegelian dialectic. Will it ever change?
Yeah, I guess we'll round things up for this time.
Right.
Like I said, man, gotta get you back on.
Yeah,
and
I'll great.
And I would love to go in more and talk about, because you're great, with your spiel with the Titanic, man. You are vast book of knowledge when it comes to the history of corruption. And I'm going to try to pull up some quotes from some of your books and try to read them to the audience also, have you elaborate, because like I said, I'm not trying to kiss your ass or anything, but I've been following your work for a while now. And, you and others, like I said, have paved the way, and we have got to just quit clinging to whatever's popular on these talk shows and, the popular guest. And we got to get back to the roots of the true alternative movement and where we actually come from, and quit going along with this divide and conquer when it comes to the alternative crowd. Like I said, I really do think it's been hijacked and taken over. But
absolutely.
But yeah, I want to say thank you for helping with my awakening process, John. And
pleasure.
You've been one puzzle piece out of many other great minds, with this.
Oh, thank you.
And I just thank you very much for coming on, and I can't wait to get you back on, John.
Yeah, anytime. I've really enjoyed myself. It's been a great chat, and let's do it again.